Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us in the Aging and Spirituality podcast. Here we are again. We're going to do such a fun topic today. I hope you will find it fun. It's one of the ones that I have been thinking about and struggling with for a while. So welcome. I'm Kathy Lee Taylor, and this is
Chris Jensen.
And we're so happy to be with you. We love doing these. For us, it's Monday that we're recording, so we love doing these Mondays together. They're always inspiring for us. So today, my topic is called, Can Competition Evolve You into a Better Person? And I believe that it can, because it was something that I was raised knowing about. I had a father who was a sports coach, so we'll get into that story. But it really is about how to find joy in challenging yourself and never stop growing. That's what the idea of competition means for me. And I'll be talking about how I do that in my own life. So if you've ever wondered if having a competitive nature benefits you, or does it doom you to a lifetime of struggle? We're going to talk about that question. If that resonates with you, listen now. I'll tell my story about my lifelong journey with competition and being an advocate for it, because I think it's a very inspiring thing in a person's lives. So like I said, I'll tell you my story first a little bit. I can see my glasses are really reflecting light today. I apologize for that. I'm going to try to keep my head down because I've got a bunch of lights going on around me. So my dad was a sports coach. More importantly, he was just a lover of sports. There was never a day hockey was not on TV at night in our home. I was raised in Canada. We grew up outdoors. We didn't have TVs or little gadgets or anything like that. So sports was really all we did. And at the very young age of 4, I was introduced to gymnastics, which I did as a little person. That morphed from there into judo and softball and hockey and ping pong and pool and soccer, and it goes on. In university, I was on the running team. In my 30s, a ballroom dancer. And of course, I learned to frequent the gym as I got older, working on my muscles and developing that part of my body. And then in my late 50s, I found tennis. And tennis is really a sport that showed me what was an operating principle for me in terms of competition in a way that I hadn't realized I was doing just naturally before. And it's kind of the reason that I was brought up this subject today and that I wanted to talk about it. So I took for granted as a young person that everybody else understood what competition meant, which was really silly because not everybody really played on a sports team. And if you haven't played on a team in a kind of competitive sport league, it's an experience. It's very unique, and it gives you capabilities and skills that you don't get otherwise. And so if you've never played sports, maybe you'll have a better understanding after you listen to our talk today. But when I was playing tennis, what I really learned was that there are a lot of people who are in the sport only for the social part of the game and not for the competitive part of the game. And I really needed to learn how to separate that. But in my heart and mind, competition is really a direct challenge for myself to never become complacent. And that's a yoga principle. Would you say, Chris? Never becoming complacent?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, when you talk about the difference between a competitive player in sports and a social player, I think the person that you're calling the competitive player, there's someone who's trying to do their best.
Yes.
Trying to do their best for the team and, to get better and better, which is very different than just playing to hang out and meet people.
That's so true. And it is a very yogic principle as well, being the best at what you can do. When you're learning something new, use all of your capacity and your abilities and push yourself to be more than you think you can be, because your mind can be your biggest limitation. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, because that is so true. But yes, I am always committed to growth. And that was something that played very well for me in studying yoga, because yoga really is about growing all the time. There's never an ending to growing when you're a yoga practitioner. So that's what I actually loved a lot about yoga. So I love the challenge of being a competitor. I live it in my everyday life, but not in a way that is harmful to me. I find joy in the competition. I find joy in pushing myself to be more every day. That doesn't mean I don't get scared. It doesn't mean I don't hold myself back sometimes, because I do. But I'm more committed to the growth part and pushing myself than holding myself back. That's just my nature, I guess. I don't know. Maybe other people feel that way. I know I do. So, how do you find joy in competition? How is that possible? Because some people really don't like it. I find a lot of social players don't like it because they don't like the pressure of competition. Like when you're playing a tennis game and maybe you're in a tiebreak and you really want to win, but what the pressure does is make you play poorly. So you're not, strategizing in a way that you learn how to use the energy and use it to win. So it's an interesting way that you actually approach how you play a game. I'm not saying I'm great at this. I'm still learning this. I'm still understanding how to apply it in my ability to focus in playing tennis, but that's the joy of it. That's the learning process that I really, really love. As a teenager, I played on a women's softball team, and I learned how fun it was to be part of a team. I felt like I was part of something bigger than me, and I felt like I really belonged. That was a really joyful experience for me. And you don't have to look far in the world and in America to see how that is a joyful experience for a lot of people that play sports in America, and for the audience that comes out to cheer them on. It's really an awesome thing that happens. So I knew as a young person, because my dad was very inspiring and very encouraging, and never, I should say, always told me that whatever I wanted to do, I could accomplish. And I was just a little bit, but he was always that guy saying, you can do this. He gave me the courage and the confidence always when I needed it most. So I had to show up on time, play my best game, and that's really all my dad required out of me. If I won, that was fantastic. But if I didn't win, I was taught to look the winner in the eye, tell them they had a great game, and wish them the best. I really learned that was what good sportsmanship was.
And I think what you're talking about,
Yeah.
I mean, your version of being a competitor is
Mhm.
being a team player, and it's good sportsmanship. And I
Yes.
think what a lot of people think of as being a competitor is wanting to win at any cost or beating out someone else.
At the cost of somebody losing.
Yeah, at the cost of someone else losing a job or whatever. And what you're talking about is using that energy, that drive, to do the best for the team and for yourself.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I think of winning. So whenever I, quote unquote, was the runner up, what they call it now instead of losing, in a ball game or whatever, it was no big deal. You wish the other person well. You said, man, they played a better game than me. You maybe looked at their game and said, what was it they did that I could do better next time? And that was the fun of the process. That was the fun of competition, because you always had a chance to grow into something better. So, okay. So that's enough of my story. What does this competition idea have to do with practicing yoga, or even really being a successful person? I mean, some of the characteristics that I was talking about are really the things that they teach you in business and in having jobs and in life that will get you ahead. Those things that when you're pushing yourself to be better, when you're pushing yourself to grow and learn, those are the things that get you into places where you're in management positions and leadership positions. And they're really the same kind of skills, and they can really be taught through sportsmanship. So what does it have to do with yoga? Well, first of all, one of the things that I had to understand about what competition really is to understand that the only competitor I needed to worry about was me. The only person standing in my way is me. And so how do I fix that? And how can yoga help me with that? So number one, yoga teaches you how to focus. one of the most important things about meditation is that you learn how to calm the mind chatter. It's the worst enemy you have when it comes to competition. And I can tell you honestly, to this day, I'm 7 years into playing tennis. I still stand on the court, and in my head, it's telling me all the mistakes I'm making, what a Dumbo I am. Why did I do that? Why did I hit the ball that way? Why are I not holding the racket correctly? Why am I not running enough? All of those things are going on in my head. And the truth is, the only way I can get past that mental block, and it really is a block that helps you not play well, is to calm that mind down. And how I fix that, and this is the important part, is to learn some kind of an anchoring technique that will bring you into the new state. So what you want to go from where the mind is chattering you and telling you what an awful player you are, you want to go to a place where the mind is completely still, and the skills and abilities you developed up until that point are able to come out, and you can play effortlessly. Your mind has to be quiet, your body and your fundamentals kick in, and you play as effortlessly as you possibly can, whatever your level of skill is at that point. That's the best that you can do. At least that's how I feel about it. So I have a trick for that, and that's to anchor something in when I realize my mind has taken off on its own tangent. I will do something to anchor myself in. Sometimes I'll take my hand and I'll breathe from here down through to the base of my spine. Sometimes I'll just take my racket, and you'll see players doing this all the time. They'll take their racket and bang their hand on it, and you can tell they're doing what we call a reset. In my mind, I'm thinking reset. There's this great scene in one of my favorite movies, For Love of the Game, with Kevin Costner, and he's a pitcher that pitches a perfect game. And I, for obvious reasons, loved this movie. And every time he's on the mound, the film would stop all the sound in the background, and you would hear him in his head say, "Clear the mechanism." And I literally will do that sometimes, standing on the court, knowing that my mind is just taking over this game, and I'll stand there and I'll often turn my back to what's going on in the game and just say, "Clear the mechanism." And it doesn't happen every time. It doesn't always happen automatically, but the more you do it, the more you anchor in that technique, the more successful you will be at calming your mind so you can play effortlessly, which is really the best you can do when you're in the present moment and playing a game. That's
You
not
know
a
what?
time to
Share with you a tennis story. When I was younger,
Good.
My late 20s, early 30s, I played tennis, and there was a guy at the courts who was in his 80s, and nobody could beat him.
And he
And
didn't have to run.
Yeah, it wasn't because he was like an athlete, it's because he said, "I outthink them," and he said, like he would say, "Where do you want me to put the ball?"
Yeah.
And his mind, he came to play, and his mind was totally clear, and he was just very much at peace when he played. And I played doubles with him once. He and I on one team, and this young guy who was very athletic with a very expensive fancy racket that neither Al nor I had, and and so the guy was trying to hit really, really hard, and Al could just go like that, and boom, he'd hit
Put
it
it where he wanted to.
Right, put it where he wanted it to. And so we beat this guy and his partner pretty badly, which, the guy got so angry. He, took his fancy racket, smashed it on the ground afterwards. And Al said to me, "That's why he didn't win."
Right.
That attitude right there. And that's what you're saying,
Yes.
if you can clear the mind. If Al had, he went out and rode his bike in the morning, got his mind totally clear. That's how he did it. And when he came to play tennis,
Right.
he was in that place, and I think that's true for everything in life.
That is true. And that's the point I want to make. Every tennis player you listen to, they've got their own routine that they do before they get on the court to calm themselves and get into the right mental space. You can do that in any part of your life, whether it's taking an exam, going to school, doing a business meeting, doing a presentation, doing a speech. It all applies in exactly the same way. And it's very successful. Speaking of tennis, the US Open just ended on Sunday, and the young man that won and set a record, he's 19 years old. Nobody that young has ever won the men's singles. This guy is, you watch him play, and he is the perfect example of calm through the entire time. You never see him whacking his racket on the ground, which a lot of the players do, getting mad, screaming, yelling, that kind of thing. He is just like completely consistent all the time. Took him right to the winning the US Open this year. It was a beautiful example. It was so fun to watch. I learned so much by watching him. I was like, okay, I'm never going to swear or yell. All good?
Yeah, we're good.
So anyway, okay, so second point here, and we're getting to the end of our conversation here about competition, but I wanted to say that the other thing that yoga helps you with in terms of this idea is that it increases your faith in yourself and in what you can accomplish in life. One of the important things I think I've learned about yoga is never to compare myself to somebody else. We are such unique individual creatures, and we can spend a lifetime getting to know who we are. And it has nothing to do with our perception of who somebody else is. It doesn't relate in any way. So when you do this comparison thing with other people, all you do is create a lot of mind chatter that you got to get over again. So just don't do it. Just don't do it, all the limiting beliefs and stuff that you kick into gear when you do that kind of thinking is not valuable in any way. So the best I can say is, all the conversations that I would say to myself in my head, you're too old, you're too short, you're too whatever. None of them are helpful in any way. So one of the ways that I fix that is basically, when you're playing a sport, you have to do the fundamentals. You have to make sure that you're practicing your basic skills. In tennis, it's your forehand and your backhand and your volley and your overhead and your serve. So the work has to be put in. There's no doubt about it. But when you have the right mental mindset, you get a certain kind of clarity and confidence that can take you so much farther in the game and in life.
And anything you do in life. I mean, anything. And in yoga. I mean, the main thing in yoga is to get to that calm, clear place.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it's all about. So I hope that you can see the similarities and how competition and yoga are really kind of linked together in such an interesting way. At least for me in my life, they work together so beautifully. One complements the other a lot. And I don't beat myself up for having a competitive nature. There's nothing wrong with that. I never harm somebody. I'm never trying to put somebody down because they can't play or they can't, do what I think they should be able to do. That's none of my business. I'm always encouraging and supporting and trying to inspire them the same way I'm trying to do that for myself. So that's a yogic principle that's pretty steady in my life. So there you go. That's my idea of competition. I hope if you're competitive in nature, you might have heard something in there that will help you and that will help you even reach out to yoga and make you even better at what you do in life or in a sport that you really, really love.
In whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Whatever you do. Business, art, sport, go for it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.